A very warm welcome to all of you to our discussion of contemporary racism, sexism and feminism. In the age of Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey and the Me Too hashtag, this event tonight is timely orchestrated and synchronized in collaboration with fantastic Södertörn University. Thank you very much for a wonderful and long-standing cooperation, which we've been benefited from for so many years. Another big thank you goes to my terrific colleague Christiane Lahusen, who has orchestrated this event in collaboration with you guys. My name is Albert Solter. I'm the director of the Goethe Institute here in Sweden since 2015. And tonight we are very, very fortunate to have Professor Sabine Haag with us. She has published extensively on these matters. She's a professor of sociology, as many of you will know, since 2009. She's the head of the Center for Interdisciplinary Women and Gender Research at the Technische Universität Berlin. And in collaboration with Paula Rein-Willer, she has recently published Unterscheiden und Herrschen, a terrific book, on these very questions which we are dealing with tonight. She's also the coordinator of Wir machen das, We're Doing It, and she is widely published in German newspapers and on the radio. And this last summer you've sparked an international debate, for some seen by some as an outrage. We followed it closely. It was Judith Bandler and Sabine Haag versus Alice Schwarzer, who was considered to be the grande dame of feminism in Germany for so many years. For so many years. 3 dots. I hope we will touch on this debate later during the evening. And our second guest tonight is Isabel Ståhl. She's a PhD candidate at Stockholm University at the Department for Culture and Aesthetics. She's published also widely reviews and essays for Svenska Dagbladet and for Swedish Radio. And she's been nominated for the August Award 2017. And we congratulate you, and we are very happy with you. And she's been nominated for her very first novel. So thank you both, thank you all for being with us tonight. We are extremely curious and excited and totally thrilled, and we're so much looking forward to the discussion with you. Now here's the flow of the evening. Professor Haag will give a very short lecture in German with Swedish translation for those who need it. And this is to be followed by a discussion with Isabel in English, and there will be time, of course, for a Q&A session with the audience. And afterwards, you're all most cordially invited to a small reception in our library. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our guest, Professor Sabine Haag. Thank you very much. Tack så mycket.
So, das reicht. Da wir ja hier am Goethe-Institut sind und die Goethe-Institute immer auch die Aufgabe haben, die deutsche Sprache in die Welt zu tragen, werde ich jetzt zunächst auf Deutsch sprechen. In der Diskussion können wir dann freihändig zwischen Deutsch und Englisch wechseln. Wer immer lieber in Englisch sprechen möchte, ist das auch auf jeden Fall möglich. Zunächst einmal ganz herzlichen Dank für diese sehr freundliche Vorstellung und überhaupt für die Einladung. Ich freue mich sehr über die Ehre, dieses Buch tatsächlich hier in Stockholm jetzt das erste Mal im Ausland vorstellen zu können. Es ist erst erschienen vor wenigen Monaten, Anfang des Sommers, im Juli, und hart noch so etwas einer größeren öffentlichen Rezeption. Ich habe da gerade heute Vormittag länger mit Teresa Gulavik drüber gesprochen, dass es doch immer wieder interessant ist zu sehen, vielleicht ist the only male, presumably the only male in the room, who knows, auch ein Indiz dafür, dass die Debatten und Rezeptionswege doch immer noch sehr getrennt sind, sobald irgendwie es zu explizit feministisch wird. Es ist sehr schnell auf einem kind of Sidetrack und hat es nicht so ganz leicht in die allgemeinen Debatten, die ja gerade in Deutschland rund um diese Themen im Moment sehr vehement geführt werden, besonders seit im September die AfD, wie sicherlich Ihnen allen bekannt ist, mit rund 13% in den Deutschen Bundestag eingezogen ist. Seitdem sind diese Fragen, mit denen Paula Irene Willer und ich uns in diesem Buch beschäftigen, ja nochmal sozusagen sehr deutlich und dringlich auf der Agenda nach vorne gerückt. Wer die Wahlberichterstattung am Abend des 24. September, das ist hier so ein bisschen hallend, vielleicht muss ich doch ein bisschen weiter weg machen, aber dann ist es zu leise wahrscheinlich. Wer die Wahlberichterstattung am Abend des 24. September im deutschen Fernsehen verfolgt hat, konnte, wer sich die Mühe gemacht hat, ich selber habe es irgendwann aufgegeben, sozusagen meine Strichliste zu führen, konnte man verfolgen, wie quer durch alle Parteien Köln einer der zentralen Referenzpunkte gewesen ist. Es gab kaum einen Politiker, eine Politikerin, auch der SPD, der Grünen, der FDP, der CDU, CSU, die nicht im Laufe dieses Abends wenigstens einmal auf Köln zu sprechen gekommen sind. Also als der Kipppunkt, der Wendepunkt, der in der Tat auch der AfD sozusagen enormen Auftrieb mit gegeben hat. Das Buch selber haben wir geschrieben, natürlich davor. Der Verlag trat an uns heran, wenige Wochen tatsächlich nach der Kölner Silvesternacht im Jahr 2015, Anfang 2016 dann, mit der Bitte, ob wir nicht uns diesem Ereignis widmen wollen. Wir haben das Buch dann tatsächlich erst geschrieben im Frühjahr diesen Jahres und hatten dann zunächst im Herbst vergangenen Jahres, also ungefähr vor einem Jahr um diese Zeit, kurzfristig das Gefühl, wird das überhaupt noch relevant sein? Wird im Sommer 2017 noch irgendjemand darüber sprechen? Die Realität hat uns da sozusagen die Zweifel leider, muss ich sagen, nehmen können. Köln ist in der Tat das Ereignis geworden, was wir uns sicherlich alle nicht gewünscht haben, aber das Terrain, auf dem diese Verflechtungen, über die wir in diesem Buch nachdenken, nämlich die Verflechtungen von Rassismus, Sexismus und Feminismus, ist in Köln sozusagen das privilegierte Terrain geworden. Ich bin etwas erkältet, deswegen ist meine Stimme vielleicht nicht immer ganz so kräftig. Die Kölner Silvesternacht steht also in der Öffentlichkeit für sich. Köln, so sagen wir es im Buch, ist die Signatur eines Ereignisses geworden, von dem bis heute eigentlich die Mehrzahl der Leute meinen zu wissen, was genau dort passiert ist. Eine Nacht auch, wie gesagt, die Wahlberichterstattung noch einmal deutlich vor Augen geführt hat, eine Nacht, die für tektonische Verschiebungen im gesellschaftlichen Gefüge steht, die wir aber, so glauben Paula Willer und ich, noch in ihrer gesamten Reichweite kaum noch bereits überblicken können. Und ein Ereignis, deren Vorkommnisse sich über das, was tatsächlich in Köln in dieser Nacht geschehen ist, wovon wir bislang immer noch nur sehr vage eigentlich wissen, was dort geschehen ist. Also um Ihnen nur sozusagen das in 2 Zahlen zu verdeutlichen, von den plus minus 1000 sexuellen Übergriffen, sexualisierten Übergriffen, von denen zunächst Anfang 2016 die Rede war, die dort stattgefunden haben sollen, bevor überhaupt irgendwelche Ermittlungen vorgelegen haben. Stand Ende 2017 sind weniger als 10 Verurteilungen erfolgt, nämlich 6 Verurteilungen erfolgt, allesamt nicht aufgrund von sexualstrafrechtlichen Delikten, sondern Eigentumsdelikte. Das hat unter anderem damit zu tun, dass das deutsche Sexualstrafrecht zu diesem Zeitpunkt, also das zum damaligen Zeitpunkt geltende deutsche Sexualstrafrecht, die Mehrzahl dieser Fälle überhaupt nicht abdeckte. Sicherlich ist Ihnen bekannt, dass im Gefolge von Köln dann eine von feministischen Juristinnen, von Frauenrechtsorganisationen viele, viele Jahre lang angemahnte Reform des deutschen Sexualstrafrechts, die seitens der CDU-CSU als sozusagen seit vielen Jahren in Regierungsverantwortung, aber auch seitens der SPD über lange Jahre blockiert worden ist, versteppt worden ist. Und dann erst nach Köln sozusagen plötzlich kam sehr viel Dynamik da rein. Also Köln hat vieles ausgelöst, unter anderem die dann erfolgte Sexualstrafrechtsreform war für uns einer der Anlässe, warum wir uns nicht nur mit den Verflechtungen von Rassismus und Sexismus, sondern dass wir in dieses Konglomerat auch den Feminismus hineingenommen haben. Etwas, was wir gelegentlich gefragt worden sind. Naja, Rassismus, die Verflechtung von Rassismus und Sexismus, das leuchtet uns ein, aber was hat der Feminismus darin zu suchen? Wir glauben, dass das zu Köln dazugehört, zu dem Ereignis Köln dazugehört, dass eine spezifische Dynamisierung auch in die feministischen Themen damit gebracht worden ist. Sexualstrafrecht ist das eine Beispiel dafür. Das andere, womit wir uns im Buch eben sehr ausführlich beschäftigen und worüber wir sicherlich im Laufe des Abends im Gespräch auch ausführlicher sprechen werden, dass wir im Gefolge von Köln nicht ganz neu, aber sozusagen seitdem vehement und verstärkt, im Übrigen europaweit sozusagen etwas erleben, was wir eine rassistische Artikulation von Feminismus nennen, in einen toxischen Feminismus, also ein Feminismus, der sich als Feminismus versteht, dafür aber benutzt wird, um rassistische Grenzziehungen, islamfeindliche Grenzziehungen zu forcieren. Wir nennen das eben, wie gesagt, eine rassistische Artikulation von Feminismus beziehungsweise einen toxisch aufgeladenen Feminismus. Wer also auf Köln zu sprechen kommt, nochmal zurück zum Ausgangspunkt, wer auf Köln zu sprechen kommt, ruft auch mehr als 1,5 Jahre später noch immer ein vermeintlich präzises, klar umrissenes, spezifisches Ereignis auf, nämlich massive sexualisierte Belästigung von Frauen in der Öffentlichkeit einer deutschen Großstadt. Das ist sozusagen die vordergründige Erzählung, die bis heute funktioniert. Da haben sich Horden von nicht-europäischen Männern, Migranten, Nordafrikanern, Muslime, das ist dann auch sozusagen eine sehr vage, oft sehr vage bleibende Umschreibung, die gleichzeitig suggeriert, sehr präzise zu sein. In den Anfängen kursierte immer wieder eine Bezeichnung, eine interne Bezeichnung der Polizei in Nordrhein-Westfalen für sogenannte nordafrikanische Intensivtäter, die sogenannten NAFRIs. Auch das werden Sie sicherlich schon mehr als einmal gehört haben. Köln ist aber eben, wie gesagt, noch viel mehr. Durch die medialen, politischen Deutungen, die dazugekommen sind, politische Regulierungen wie das Sexualstrafrecht, wurde eben Köln zu einer Chiffre, zu dem Emblem, wenn wir darüber reden, ob die Muslime zu Europa passen oder nicht. Die Chiffre Köln ist also leer und aufgeladen zugleich und eignet sich gerade deshalb, also weil es sozusagen so ein einerseits leeres Ereignis ist, über das tatsächlich die Leute sehr wenig konkret, über das wir sehr wenig konkret wissen, eignet es sich umso besser, es mit anderen Inhalten, mit anderen Bedeutungen aufzuladen. Was nach Köln möglich wurde, und auch das ist, glaube ich, eine wichtige zeitliche Koinzidenz, Köln ein halbes Jahr nach dem Summer of Welcome in Deutschland, ein halbes Jahr nachdem Angela Merkel irgendwann dem Druck nachgab und kurzfristig die deutschen Grenzen öffnete, indem sich unabhängig von der Politik, obwohl es jetzt sehr oft immer wieder ihr zugeschrieben wird, ich glaube tatsächlich, dass es andersherum gewesen ist, die zivilgesellschaftliche Willkommenskultur hatte sich längst gebildet. Es hatte, wenn man so will, einen anderen moralischen Ausdruck, des Willkommens, der Hospitalität gefunden. Und genau diese neue Moral, die sich sozusagen im Entwickeln befand, musste zurückgedrängt werden. Und dafür eignete sich Köln ganz hervorragend, nämlich weil sich mit Köln gezeigt hatte, dass diejenigen, die wir willkommen hießen, unsere Werte nicht achten wollen oder können. Werte, die die Gleichstellung von Frauen und Männern betreffen. In jedem Fall hat, so schien es, Köln deutlich gemacht, dass die allzu freizügige Toleranz gegenüber Männern aus dem arabischen Kulturkreis, was und wo immer dieser sein mag, irgendwie unseren liberalen, egalitären, westlichen Konsens gefährden würde. Und irgendwie auch unsere Frauen. Köln musste also für die Behauptung herhalten, dass bestimmte Migranten nicht integrierbar sind, sich nicht integrieren wollen und dass es irgendwie doch fundamental unüberwindliche Differenzen zwischen Kulturen gibt. Und genau diesem irgendwie der fundamental unüberwindlichen Differenzen zwischen Kulturen, wie sozusagen dieser Topos genährt, bis heute sozusagen weiter genährt und, ich sage es jetzt mal bewusst ein bisschen zugespitzt, befeuert wird, haben wir versucht, in diesem Buch nachzugehen. Köln diente zudem auch dazu, die Notwendigkeit flächendeckender Videoüberwachung beispielsweise zu legitimieren, das Erstarken populistischer Parteien, die Erosion der Zivilgesellschaft wird Köln zur Last gelegt, aber eben auch, wie gesagt, dass durch Köln feministische Anliegen zwar seitdem verstärkt Gehör finden, diese Aufmerksamkeit jedoch mit neuen Rassismen und der Kulturalisierung sozialer Ungleichheit verwoben ist. Köln ist also schon jetzt, weniger als 2 Jahre danach, Teil unserer historischen Objektivität. Nach Köln ist wie ein Eintrag in den Kalender, der dem Diskurs und auch der Politik eine neue Richtung gegeben hat. Die Fluchtlinien der Debatten über den politischen Umgang mit Migration und Asyl, über Sexualität und Geschlecht, über die strafrechtliche Behandlung von sexualisierter Gewalt, darüber, welche Rechte den Neuankommenden zustehen, über das Verhältnis zwischen uns und den anderen, eben den Verflechtungszusammenhang von Rassismus, Sexismus und Feminismus, aber auch von Kultur, Rasse, Geschlecht, Religion und Moral, von Einwanderung, Integration und innerer Sicherheit sind in jener Silvesternacht 2015 unwiderruflich verschoben worden. Die damit verbundenen komplexen Effekte sind aber nicht so einfach auf einen Nenner zu bringen. Und damit haben wir in diesem Buch ganz schön gerungen. Bei genauerer Betrachtung wird deutlich, dass die durch Köln forcierten Dynamiken von einer Ambivalenz bestimmt sind, die praktisch durch fundamentalistische Rhetoriken eingehegt bzw. abgewehrt wurden. Also die deutsche Frau, der nordafrikanische Mann. Insbesondere Sexualpolitik wurde einmal mehr für eine schlichtweg rassistische Wahrheitsproduktion aktiviert und Feminismus für die Legitimation europäischer Grenzregime vereinnahmt. Und darüber werden wir sicherlich dann in der Diskussion noch ausführlicher sprechen. Wir arbeiten da mit dem Begriff des Femonationalismus, den die italienische Soziologin Sarah Ferris geprägt hat. Dass Feminismus oder die Rechte sexueller und geschlechtlicher Minderheiten gegen das Fremde, das andere, den Islam, jedenfalls gegen das, was nicht Westen ist, in Stellung gebracht wird, ist allerdings nicht neu. Auch das ist wichtig zu sehen, dass wir das nicht alles erst seit Köln erleben, dass es aber seit Köln erstens intensiviert wurde und dass es zweitens so erfolgreich ist, hat etwas damit zu tun, dass wir auf ein sozusagen lange etabliertes Archiv rassistischer Artikulation der Unverträglichkeit der Kulturen, vor allen Dingen der Nicht-Integrierbarkeit des Islam in den europäischen Westen, in die europäische Aufklärung. Da gibt es sozusagen ein über viele Jahrhunderte etabliertes koloniales, imperiales Reservoir, was immer wieder aktiviert werden kann, wo man sich auch sehr gut sehen kann, wie bestimmte Trope eben über den schwarzen oder aber auch muslimischen Mann, der seine Triebe nicht im Griff hat und dessen Trieb sich natürlich immer auf die Unterwerfung der weißen Frau richtet. Sozusagen, das ist da immer wieder leicht aktivierbar gewesen. Ich will noch die Zeit schreitet sehr schnell voran, ich will noch einen letzten Begriff aufrufen, der für unsere Arbeit in diesem Buch sehr wichtig gewesen ist. Wir haben versucht, diese Fundamentalisierung, wie wir es genannt haben, mit dem Begriff der Versämtlichung zu fassen. Ein Begriff, der bereits auf Hedwig Dohm, eine Feministin der ersten radikalen Frauenbewegung Ende des 19., Anfang des 20. Jahrhunderts zurückgeht. Also umgekehrt, genauso wie wir ein sozusagen lange etabliertes Archiv rassistischer Redeweisen haben, haben wir auch ein unschätzbares, viel zu wenig geschätztes, so vielleicht ein feministisches Archiv, auf das wir zurückgreifen können, um zu verstehen, um unsere Gegenwart zu verstehen. Hedwig Dohm hat mit dem Begriff der Versämtlichung vor allen Dingen die Stereotypisierung des männlichen und vor allen Dingen des weiblichen Geschlechts im Blick gehabt. Wir haben diesen Begriff genommen, haben ihn sozusagen ein Stück weit generalisiert und ihn dafür verwendet, sozusagen immer dort, wo bestimmte Essentialisierungen, auch dichotome Essentialisierungen, weiß, schwarz, männlich, weiblich, benutzt werden, die im Effekt sozusagen immer darauf zielen, starke, dualistische, manichäische Differenzkonstruktionen zu entwerfen, ihr, wir, fremd, eigen oder eben, wie gesagt, schwarz-weiß, männlich, weiblich vermeintlich zu plausibilisieren. Wir haben das Buch unter anderem deswegen Unterscheiden und Herrschen genannt, weil wir diese Art von Differenzkonstruktionen, fundamentalisierenden und fundamentalistischen, wenn man so will, Differenzkonstruktionen nachgehen wollten, die für uns sich eben in diesem Begriff des Unterscheidens und Herrschens, also Unterschiede zu machen, um zu herrschen. Und dem setzen wir entgegen, nicht keine Unterschiede machen, aber zu verstehen, erstens, wie wird Differenz benutzt, um zu herrschen, und wie können wir in Differenz denken, wie können wir Unterschiede machen, die nicht versämtlichen, die nicht dazu benutzt werden für asymmetrische, stereotypisierende Entgegensetzungen. Ja, vielleicht soweit. Jetzt habe ich schon länger gesprochen, glaube ich, als die mir zugestandenen 10 Minuten. Aber ich denke, wir haben noch genug Stoff übrig jetzt für das Gespräch, für das wir jetzt beide, glaube ich, an den Tisch wechseln.
So, Rasha. Good. Thank you for this. I'm very impressed by this book. I think it's a question that many in Sweden consider very hard to tackle and to talk about. And in the wake of the notorious New Year's Eve in Cologne, 2015, so feminist theorists have been confronted with the ways in which feminism was quickly appropriated in the service of racism. And the persons who use this supposed feminist rhetoric to argue for nationalist questions, who are they targeting? Who are they talking to? And are they feminists, do you think?
Yeah, that is actually an interesting question. I mean, if you... Oh, I start with a little anecdote. Just a few months ago, I had a conversation with one of the representatives of the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, in the Berlin parliament. She calls herself a hardcore feminist. And I asked her, I'm making it short, I asked her, and there was a radio feature on women politicians in the AfD, and she was one of the women who were portrayed in this radio feature, and she felt her feminism didn't come across enough. I was interviewed for this radio program as an expert, so the next day she called me because she wanted to make sure that I understand that she is a feminist, a hardcore feminist. And I asked her, well, is that not a contradiction? How can you be a hardcore feminist doing politics in an anti-feminist party? And she said, well, it's not true. The AfD is the only party in the German party system that does something against the Muslims. And the Muslims are the ones that are taking away all our feminist achievements. And this is why it's not a contradiction to be a hardcore feminist in the AfD. Because in her understanding, the AfD is a feminist, so to say, a feminist party. Mm. So, from a feminist point of view, it makes it really hard to differentiate, you know. It's not so easy to say, okay, then it's not feminist. Mm. And this is something we had to, you know, it was pretty hard in the book to like develop a point of view, not saying, okay, they are all racists and this is not feminism, but to understand that they clearly do have a feminist agenda in following kind of, you know, racist goals, so to say. So back to the question, whom are they addressing? I think in 2017, you can't sell, you can't argue a blatant non-feminist, anti-feminist politics anymore. Because, I mean, not a single woman in any Western democracy, even if she does not claim herself to be a feminist, you know, would not go back beyond women and men are equal. Mm. So you can't, you know, gain votes by saying, oh, we are against equality between men and women. But you can gain votes by, oh, they might take away some of the rights achieved. For example, in the French election campaign, Marine Le Pen, clearly advocated this kind of, she would like address the regular French woman saying, yes, I'm the only one, Front National is the only one who protects all the rights. Pretty much like this AfD politician in Berlin said to me, and this is clearly, this is the position of Marine Le Pen, and you can go from one European country to the next. I mean, you find this kind of, now we are already at this topic, what Sarah Ferris calls Femonationalismus, Femonationalism, you know, a feminist articulation in the name of racist.
Yes.
Of a racist agenda, basically.
So it's a kind of feminism, but a racist.
Yeah,
feminism.
I mean, I would say it's a racist feminism.
Yeah.
And you know, when you say that, it's just like, oh, that can't be the case. How can feminism be racist? Racist. But again, if you go back in history, there's been colonial feminisms all along. I mean, white women going into the colonies, civilizing the brown women in the colonies, white women going into the colonies and trying to, to in search of liberties they would not have back in their home countries.
So this kind of ambivalence
Yeah,
has
yeah,
existed
yeah,
as
that's
history.
right,
It's nothing
right,
new.
right. That's not new, but apparently it still works.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I've seen this kind of rhetoric from the AFD. They say, like, we talk to you who are afraid in the streets, and to queer people as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, right, and you have all these kind of paradoxes. Like we analyzed one interview in the book between Frauke Petry, who's now not AfD any longer, but who's been the spokesperson of the AfD, with Katrin Göring-Eckardt, one of the spokespeople of the Green Party. And Frauke Petry says to Katrin Göring-Eckardt from the Green Party, well, we are the ones defining LGBT rights. And you, with your cultural relativism, basically, you deny that queer people on the streets of Berlin are beaten up by migrant youth, for example. Which is happening, of course. I mean, it's not, our answer then can't be to deny this kind of homophobia, transphobia, but what we try to argue in the book is, and what I just said in the introduction, what we call Versämtlichung, this kind of Fundamentalisierung in the discourse. And it's, this is a migrant, so he must be homophobe. This is a migrant, so he can't respect women.
Yeah, it's a kind of essentialistic.
This kind of shortcut.
Yeah, and it's a hard question, but without generalizing, women and men in Muslim countries face limits and threats to their rights. Couldn't this explain the increasing focus on these areas and the critique of immigration, you think? Or could it be legit to criticize immigration on this ground?
Yeah, now we have a situation, and it was mentioned already in the beginning, the controversy of this summer in the Zeit between Judith Butler and me on one side and Alice Schwarzer on the other side. And we've been accused, and Paula Willer and I have been accused of cultural relativism, for example. That we excuse the kind of atrocities, the kind of inequalities, violences that happen to women worldwide, especially supposedly in Muslim countries or in countries with dominant Muslim culture, which is of course.
Isn't there a risk of removing responsibility from the other or so?
Yeah, we've been accused of that as well, in terms of, you're always, taking the andere out of the, responsibility, which is not true. If this is the, so to say, kind of general moral rule, then it of course applies also to the andere, of course, no man has the right to sexual violate women, sexually arrest women, no matter in no place in the world, of course, And we did write about this in the book as well. Every man, regardless of his religious faith, regardless of his race, ethnicity, cultural, political beliefs, has the freedom to not be violent, to not harass sexually women, and that's the baseline. That's of course the baseline that applies to every man, to every person. But what we saw after Cologne was clearly, and we see it now in the Me Too. Harvey Weinstein was already mentioned. No one talks about, is it because
they are white now?
There is a patriarchy in white Western democracies? No, no one talks about that. It's not related to their culture, to their religion.
You're not talking about the rape culture in the film and media
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah, right. It's singular men
Yes.
who
Individuals.
misuse their power.
Yes.
But it's not related to rape culture, right?
Yes.
To patriarchy, to sexism. So these kind of...
It's not the same demonizing.
Yeah, right, yeah.
The English feminist political scientist Nicola Pratt, she suggests a strategic silence on women's rights in general in order to escape the complicity with racializing discourse and associations with the war on terror. And I've heard the same kind of rhetoric in Sweden, that we should not talk about cases of violence in other cultures, because then it can like give fire to a racist rhetoric. But is this the only possible answer to the ambivalent entanglements of feminists and racists, do you think? Is this the only...
No, I absolutely disagree with that position. We need to address this kind of violence, but as white women, as women in the imperial West, so that kind of use a kind of short term, we would first of all need to, empower women in these countries to address these issues. I mean, we can't just go there and speak for them, which is happening all too often still, basically. But we can also, to silence these kind of violence, for example, can't be an option either. I mean, that word feminists often criticize Western feminist discourses for that they say, well, we hardly have the platform anymore to address the inequalities in our countries. So we need to find ways of collaborating with women in the global south, with feminists in the global south, on a more, eye-to-eye, equal level, but not, first of all, neither speaking for them nor silencing their issues as well. Yeah.
Yes. You criticize a form of feminism from the late, for some years ago, the alpha mentioned feminism, individualistic feminism, whose goal seemed to be that women should imitate traditional roles of men in their living and acting. And what do you think of this kind of feminism? And do you have yes, you have already said, kind of an alternative, so...
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of interesting, the different phases, basically, feminism went through over the period of the last 10 years. Like, pretty much 10 years ago, the diagnosis would have been, okay, feminism is dead. I mean, really few women, dared to claim feminism as a label, as a political point of view. They had this wave of in Germany of the Alpha Mädchen, the Alpha girls, who kind of claimed articulated kind of very individualistic version of feminism. Not saying feminism in the first place.
A kind of Sex and the City feminism?
Yeah, right. Kind of Sex and kind of Sex in the City, in terms of, well, we can be everything we want to be, and we don't need this kind of old-fashioned, fashion-hating, sex-hating, second-wave feminism. I think from looking at it from now, I think this has been actually a necessary stadium in terms of, it was necessary to get rid of second-wave feminism.
Why?
because we Western democracies apparently needed to get rid of, first of all, a language of solidarity, a language of collectivity, the language of understanding inequalities in structural terms, and not only in a kind of individualistic model. So we needed this kind of what Angela McRobbie in her book The Aftermath of Feminism has brilliantly analyzed. We needed this kind of disarticulation, repudiation of second wave feminism in order to recreate the neoliberal version of feminism, and now the kind of racist, neo-reactionary, maybe even proto-fascist versions of feminism. To enable the kind of feminisms we have now, we had to get rid of the second wave feminism.
But what do you think is a future feminism would look like? Or what's your wish for a future feminism?
Because I think between the lines it's clear that I still in favor of many of the insights of second wave feminism, but of course it's not possible. First of all, it's not possible, and second, we have to recognize that the world has changed and is not the world of the 60s and 70s and maybe early 80s anymore. So even second wave feminism has to transform and to somehow, answer, for example, to the challenges by women of color, by queer feminists, and by the challenge of that we live in a completely different world than in comparison to the early 70s in terms of the global challenges we face. So we need to reframe many of the second wave ideas. But I think the future we have ahead of us is first of all one with many different articulations of feminism, and this will go on for quite some time, I think.
Yeah, there is not one.
Right. And there is clear. I mean, as much as we have a kind of struggle for hegemony in general in Western democracies, we also have this kind of struggle within feminism. And the future can be that the kind of racist feminisms win. And if we don't want that to happen, we have quite some work ahead of us, I would say.
Yes, and do you think that the way to go is to talk? To how should we meet this? How should we deal with this kind of racist feminism? Do you have a tactic or a strategy for that? It seems like you have a dialogue with some of them, even if it's...
Yeah, even if it's difficult. But it's actually pretty, on many levels, pretty hard to be in dialogue with these feminists. First of all, because they don't want dialogue. I mean, they don't enter a conversation with the goal to we try to find out different points of views and try to move forward. They want to win.
And what does it mean for them to win, you think?
To win in
what do they want?
I mean, they don't want people like us to be there in the first place. So,
and it's important to know that.
Yeah. So entering a dialogue with, not only racist feminists, but entering the dialogue with people on the right can only work if you were pretty aware of the fact that they don't want to share the world with others.
That's hard.
It's not. We can't afford to be naive on that point. I mean, they don't want to share the world. They want the world to themselves. So that makes it difficult
Yes.
to enter any kind of political conversation or controversy with them. But we do need to speak up. I mean, that's at least one of the decisions I, as an academic, took, that we need to speak up every time that they raise their voices. One of us has to be there and
Yes.
talk back.
Yeah, instead of
And we're not doing that enough at the moment. We have to do that a
More.
lot more.
yeah, instead of dividing and conquer, you Unterschieden herrschen, you propose another way of handling the modern situation we are in right now. You call it an open engagement with difference, and I found it compelling, and I don't know exactly what it means. Could you tell us a little?
I might have to do that in German. Is the
Yeah.
Dolmetscherin still there? Okay. Wir haben im Buch gesagt, dass wir eben nicht gegen Unterschied, gegen Differenz per se sind. Das wäre ja vielleicht eine kurzschlüssige Antwort darauf. Wenn Unterschiede, wenn Differenzen benutzt werden, um zu herrschen, dann machen wir, sozusagen ziehen wir uns auf die Position, wir sind doch alle gleich, zurück. Ja, wir sind alle gleich, aber wir sind alle, wie Hannah Arendt sagen würde, maximal verschieden. Wir alle sind verschieden. Niemand von uns ist gleich mit irgendjemand anderem, selbst in diesem Raum. Wir sind politisch gleich. Das ist sozusagen die Baseline, worauf es zu bestehen gilt, die politische Gleichheit der Verschiedenen. Deswegen geht es nicht darum, Differenzen abzuschaffen, sondern wir haben das mit der Formel umschrieben, Indifferenz über Differenz nachdenken. Also im Bewusstsein darum, dass wir alle radikal verschieden sind und in dieser radikalen Verschiedenheit gleich sind und gleich sein müssen. Und das heißt, dass alle den gleichen Anteil an der Welt haben. Der postkoloniale Theoretiker Achille Mbembe hat das formuliert, dass alle das gleiche Recht haben, die Welt zu beerben. Und was die Rechten tun, ist genau das in Frage stellen. Genau das ist es, was sie nicht wollen. Dass die Welt uns allen gehört. Sie wollen entscheiden, wem, oder im Grunde haben sie bereits entschieden, wem die Welt gehören darf und wer nicht zur Welt gehören darf. Und dem müssen wir, ich meine, vor 2, 3 Jahren vielleicht noch hätten die wenigsten von uns, ich selber eingeschlossen, nicht gedacht, dass wir uns in der Situation wiederfinden. Ich meine, insbesondere seit die US-Amerikaner den Präsidenten gewählt haben, den sie jetzt vor einem Jahr gewählt haben, dass wir sozusagen wirklich in der Situation uns befinden, die Demokratie verteidigen zu müssen. Und das ist die Situation, die die westlichen Demokratien gerade zu bestehen haben. Brauchen wir ja gar nicht, ich meine, das erleben wir in allen unseren Ländern. Ich gucke jetzt gerade Theresa an, die Proteste, die es jetzt gerade in Polen wieder gegeben hat, aber auch in den westlichen Demokratien. Wir sind genau in der Situation, in der einige beschlossen haben, dass nicht alle die Welt beerben, wie man sagen würde. Was es dafür braucht, was wir im Buch Kontingenzkompetenz unter
Yes.
anderem genannt haben. Wie sich das übersetzt im Alltag und was es dafür zum Beispiel dann auch an alltäglichen Praxen braucht, aber vielleicht auch an etwas in der Schulbildung etc. pp. Also das Erlernen einer Haltung, die einschließt, dass so wie ich bin, nur eine Weise zu sein ist. Dass es auch anders sein kann. Und dass dieses Anderssein genauso legitim ist wie meine Weise zu sein. Was umgekehrt, und das kommt nochmal zurück zur Frage von, ja, wie nehmen wir die anderen mit in die Verantwortung? Sind die davon ausgenommen? Ja, das gilt natürlich für die anderen auch. So, also diese ethische Haltung zu erlernen, das ist nicht einfach.
Nein.
Und in einer Zeit, die ja auch sehr darauf aus ist, immer zu vereinfachen. So scheinbar sozusagen. Ne? Und uns ja auch immer gesagt wird, die Welt ist viel zu kompliziert und es muss alles einfacher werden. Ja, die Welt ist verdammt kompliziert. Das ist sie aber auch immer schon gewesen. Und das macht die Welt ja eigentlich auch so spannend.
Wirklich schön erzählt und I find it very beautiful this when you talk about this competence of contingency. So it means acting with the knowledge of that us, I, and we, anyone, as well as the conditions could be different.
Yeah.
When one believes that we use an unified or consistent identity from birth until death, then it's only because we find it comforting to have such a narrative or story about ourselves. Though in the communities where we live since 2 centuries, that is true for no one. We all come from somewhere and no one comes from here. And in that we can seek and find comfort, right? And that's very existential, and I find that that's one of the very fine qualities of this book. It's also very philosophical, in an unusual way. And
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, taking that up, I mean, who of us in this room stayed in the same place for his or her entire life? I assume none of us. I mean, we all have this kind of experience that we call it migrated. I mean, we tend to say, okay, migrants are the ones that came from other countries, from other continents maybe, but in some, I mean, not to generalize it and making it kind of banal then, but still, in many ways, all of us have the experience of migration.
yes,
We all migrated to some extent. Geographically, socially, culturally.
and there is this idea that you said that it was easier before. It's a narrative that it was less complex before. And now it's worse than ever. And also this notion, the verrottene Gegenwart, also the rotten present. What do you think about this notion, or how do you...
Say it again?
The verrottene Gegenwart, also what do you think of this idea of the present as rotten, or it's someone...
Okay, die verrottete Gegenwart.
Yeah.
That's a term from a German feminist philosopher, Christina Thürmer-Rohr. She is one of the second wave feminist philosophers in Germany. And she wrote this essay already in the 80s, 1980s, diese ganze verrottete Gegenwart. And she deals in this essay, it was written right after Chernobyl. So it deals with the nuclear catastrophe and all the catastrophes we had, that were happening in the 80s, which were quite a lot. I mean, the world has been a catastrophe for a long time. And she still says, okay, it's in many ways the world is a dystopic place, but this is the only present we have. We can't wait for some kind of utopia happening some time in the future. This present, which is a rotten present, a verrottete Gegenwart, is the only time we have. And this is why we have to live and act now and not wait for a kind of, unknown, uncertain future when everything will be better.
Yes, I find that painful,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
And the impossibility of utopias is painful for,
Yeah,
ambitions
but
as
it's
well.
also very liberating, actually. I find it, when I read this in the 80s, I was very young, obviously, when I read this for the first time in mid-80s, and I found it very liberating. Okay, yeah, that's the time we have, and
Yes.
even in biographical terms, there's only one life, and I can't wait to live my life till the world is a better place. So live it now and make it a better place now. And not, and I think Christina Tümer-Roy also used this phrase of verrottete Gegenwart in the sense of don't look at what the world is like and not kind of drüber hinwegtäuschen, sich die Welt schönreden, verleugnen, which she says is kind of a feature of femininity, basically, of maybe white Western femininity, pretending that the world is
Better,
nice, that you can live, a nice private life, and kind of, shut your eyes and not look at what's going on around you, so beyond your own, maybe, for example, private family life.
I fully agree with Judith Butler on her description of this book as a very brave and brilliant work of critical feminism. And I thank you very much for reading it and talking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Questions from the audience?
Well, I'm not sure if I can phrase my question. And I don't know whether in German or English, but let's take English.
But you should wait for the microphone, I guess. Because we're also recording, so...
Okay, you have been talking about dialogue, and you have been describing the problem with binary views that we kind of want to park in two different places. I had some students asking me or telling me, what do we actually do with those that we oppose? When we think about Köln in 2015, or when you think about Stockholm and the rapes that happened here during festivals, we realize, yes, some people did wrong, but what do we do? How can we approach these people that we want to just think about the other and not really talk with? We just say, you are misbehaving. But what can we do? How can we open this dialogue? And how can we actually do something in the moment, like you were speaking about? Have you got any thoughts on that? That's my question, very big. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a big question, actually. Thank you. I mean, as I said before, the answer can't be to like kind of neglect any kind of violence, whatever, if it's sexual harassment or any kind of violence. Baseline. As an academic, I would say, well, we need to very carefully try to analyze, for example, in the case of Cologne, how religion, culture, social inequalities, experience of Fluchterfahrung.
Yeah, of also
You know, having to leave your country, and the kind of experiences you make on your refuge journey, traumas, etc. And not, I mean, what happened after Cologne was, they are Muslims, they are North Africans, they must be rapists, basically. Which I mean, in juridical terms, we still don't know what happened, you know, so. So as an academic, I would say we really need to like analyze very carefully. Politically, we need to address the deeds, but not in terms of identifying or kind of, you know, in this kind of fundamentalist way of identifying, he is a perpetrator because he is X or Y or Z. But focusing on the deed, on the tat, so to say, and not on the perpetrator in the first place, in this kind of, you know, positivist, fundamentalist, stereotyping way. And we must, I mean, what's happening in, very often, I mean, in the feminist debates, for example, about Muslim women wearing the veil. I mean, we Western feminists very often talk about other women instead of talking with them. I mean, many feminists always know, wearing a Kopftuch means she is oppressed, she doesn't have her own opinion, she can't take her own decisions, etc., etc. How often do we really actually talk to women, for example, who decide to take on the wheel? I mean, so that's part of what we try to develop in the book, what we call this Haltung, this ethos, not talking about the word, but thinking with the word, talking to the people, with the people, instead of talking about them.
That sounds great. I'm just missing one bit here, and it's talking to the men. The ones that we kind of know that they are potential perpetrators. How do we approach that problem that we think we know what some men are like, or that they can't help themselves or whatever? It's a really tough question. Have you heard anything? Can you give any tips? Because my students, they would love to have your opinion, and I'll tell you. Tell them.
Just, you know, now after #MeToo, there are men coming forward and saying, okay, well, we've been using violence, we've been addressing, trying to address it. And that's something, for example, I said after already Köln, why don't men mobilize more against sexual violence? I mean, it's their issue and not a women's issue. It's a men's issue. And that's what we need to put on the agenda more. And they need to, men need to mobilize and organize politically around this issue. And not only, maybe hopefully this is a start, but they organize their own hashtag, and I am a perpetrator. But they need to organize politically, and they need to address each other as men, asking each other, why do you think sexism, why do you think any kind of sexist behavior is appropriate, is a legitimate means of addressing other women, a woman or even other men. They need to, men need to politically organize around this issue, definitely. So that it can't happen, that it's like, oh, it's only these Harvey Weinstein types of people that misuse their power. No, it's systemic. It's a systemic issue, and that needs to be addressed by men, politically.
I wanted to comment on the way of this fascio-feminism, or how do you call it? Racial feminism.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it kind of just as a tool to get another stage and to sit on another stage? Because for me, here in Sweden, it's always weird that the big thing is always, yes, since we have the far-right party, the states, since then we are talking about migration. Before it was not a topic. But what is happening, when I look how it was talked about before, is since the state, they are talking about migration from the point of view of the state. So is it a similar tool with the fascio feminism?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we deliberately decided to call it feminism as well, and not say, okay, this when it's not a feminist position, because that makes it more challenging and more tricky to acknowledge, okay, this also is a feminist point of view, but it can be racist, ethno-sexist, some call it.
Sorry, but do they develop some point of views on that, or are they then just talking about problems with Muslims? Or is there also some other social issues in it? Or is it really just like monothematic?
What's interesting is, at least, it's not only the German context, but also in other European countries as well, you find, for example, the AfD in Germany have in their part of their political program is that they want to get rid of gender studies. So they've been fighting against gender studies for quite some time now. Pegida in Dresden, in their program, is opposed to gender studies. And many of the main proponents of this kind of, who argue this kind of racist feminism, also argue against gender studies in terms of, they are taking our gender identities away, they're taking us away the notion of that there's men and women and that it's based on biology. It's not only a kind of racist articulation of feminism, but it's also a kind of pro-family, sex binary, pro-heterosexuality, anti-queer, anti-gender. And that's interesting to how this ties into each other, How they, for example, if we want to put it on the level of the slogans, Pegida is against the Islamization of Europe, but they also are against what they call the genderization of Germany or Europe, so to say. So this so it's not only against a racist articulation or against the Islam, but it's also against any kind of feminism that is not, that questions the heteronormativity, that questions the Kleinfamilie. And that's an interesting link which we need to look at very closely. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the talk. My question also relates to the racist feminism and especially the term. So I was wondering, so my impression from the talk is that we call someone a feminist as soon as you take a political position that is pro-women at some point in time. And I wondered, by using this definition of feminism, if we don't just if we don't just talk more about language and terminology rather than real issues. What do you think?
How would you distinguish between
So we
language
could not
and the
call
real
it-
issues?
Okay, let's say I could say a feminist is someone who takes women's issues in several positions, in several points in time. So it's not just someone who takes women's issues when it comes to one topic in one country, but in any point in time, so more global, almost like a political view. If we would use this definition, then we couldn't call them racist feminists. We could find another term, give them invent a new word, let's say. Given that, couldn't we have another debate, like one that is not so much about language, but maybe more about substance? So I wanted about your point of view on this.
I'm not quite sure if I agree that it's only or predominantly about language. I mean, going back to the question before, I mean, none of these feminists on the right would deny that women and men are equal. But they would argue women and men are equal, but they are still by nature different. And because they are by nature different, women belong in a house and men somewhere else, wherever, for example. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the arguments many of them make. Because women and men are different by nature, they have different responsibilities, different tasks in life. But they should be equal. They should be treated equally. So it is, I mean, I would still say that, I mean, this is a kind of feminist position.
Okay. You wanna?
But is anyone who claims to be a feminist? Is Donald Trump a feminist if he claims to be a feminist? I mean, it's the position that men and women are equal is so baseline at this point in history that I think few people would argue that to be like a feminist position. Or I mean, that's just basically. Are they actually? I mean, it sounds like they have. They belong to some kind of traditional, like essential or biologist feminist point of view. Then, but I mean, they could potentially be biologist feminists and racists.
Yeah.
But in order for them to actually be like racist feminists, shouldn't there be something that sort of characterizes them as feminists that differentiates them from, well, biologist feminists and racists?
I'm not quite sure I already got where you are heading, both of you, where you're heading at.
So, is there something that characterizes them that is specific to something you would call racist feminism? Or is it just that they adhere to some biologist feminism and that they're racists? Is there something specific that characterizes them that would motivate sort of treating them like an own category of feminists.
No, I mean, what makes it... I mean, they're not only, essential... They're not only taking essentialist point of view in regard to gender difference, and then they are also racists, but they use feminist arguments to justify racism.
Sure, but that's different than them having a specific new ideology, say.
Yeah, but they, and vice versa, they use racist arguments for their feminist point of views. Sure. For example, Muslim men per se are not able to respect women. Muslim men per se do not respect the value of equality between men and women. Per se do not respect queers. So it works both ways.
Yes.
They articulate racism and feminist positions in the same spot, basically. They not only argue a natural essential.
What are their feminist point
gender
of views
difference.
other than that they think that men and women are equal? According to them, because they don't seem very consistent in that opinion either, honestly.
When you would have to go through the AfD program, for example.
So maybe that they claim that they want to bevara what feminists have fought for. And they want to preserve that and.
Yeah, for example, the one I started, this woman from the AfD, I had this discussion, who claims herself to be a hardcore feminist. Of course she is for reproductive freedom. She is for equal payment between men and women. They do have. And not all of them. It's hard. It's difficult to say. Okay, this is the feminist politics of, for example, the AfD. There are different. There are a lot of nuances, basically, but they do have clearly. They do have feminist positions and demands that many of us would probably, if we would, only look at them in a kind of isolated way, we would say, yes, of course, we agree. Abortion should be legal.
Are there more questions?
I have this. Where do I?
Oh, thank you.
But reproductive freedom should be something only for white women.
Okay. My question is about this kind of how it's not a question. It's like really loud thinking, because I find the situation we find ourselves in quite confusing, and I really have difficulties to make sense of this, and this is like this many things. But one where you said, okay, at one side this position is trying to say that women and men have different roles, and therefore they are different. But if you look at these leading figures like Frauke Petry and even more, what is her name, the lesbian
Alice Weidel.
Alice Weidel. I was really, I was like, whoo, would I have ever expected to see such a woman as the second speaker beside this old yeah, you know, this macho war guy where you can easily understand why he's there. So for me it was really, it's still a challenge, try to making sense, what is this about? How can this, you know, these are not traditional women at all. I mean, Frauke Petry is a brilliant, is really, she's brilliant in a way, right? She is. And so I'm not sure whether you do not make a kind of clearer lines than they are lines. The lines are not so clear. There's much greater ambiguity in this new movements, and they are quite, in Germany they are like this, in Poland they are similar but still a little bit different, but yeah, this is my confusion. I think it's too simple to say it's traditional gender roles. It's not traditional gender roles. What is it about? Or do you, I mean, you can oppose my argument really, but I'm thinking.
Naja, interestingly enough, I mean, women like Frauke Petry or Alice Weil, I mean, first of all, they live different lives, they pursued different careers, and of course, I mean, one has to be very careful and a lot more, you know, nuanced than I can be here now, and go and there are differences between, you know, for example, the Catholic women's movement in Poland is different from Le Pen's feminism in France, and is different from Pim Fortuyn in the Netherlands, who is also claiming somehow feminist positions, you know, pro-LGBT rights positions, you know, some very queer way to say it like this. So it's very, of course, it's a very heterogeneous and complicated terrain of positions. Which is why I said, okay, yeah, we will. The near future will be that there will be lots of different feminist articulations, and the future will show which one will kind of, you know, win the struggle over hegemony. But I mean, not in this book, but in the book I did with Paula Villa before on the anti-gender movements, you can clearly find, I mean, one of the general characteristics that you find in all of these movements is a, you know, this, how they oppose gender and what they, you know, think what gender, I mean, how they portray gender as a kind of ideology that says gender is only a cultural construction, and they're taking away our notion of the natural difference between men and women. That's a feature you find in all of these movements, in every European country worldwide. I mean, there's been, maybe some of you follow this, there's been these protests in Brazil last week. There's been a conference not on gender, on democracy. Judith Butler was one of the organizers. There's been a petition organized against, you know, against her, that she should not come to Brazil and not be able to talk. 370,000 people, 370,000 Menschen signed this petition within 2 weeks against Judith Butler as the leading figure of the gender ideology, who misleads all of our children, who destroys the family, as the basic of societies. Thus, destroying the family means destruction of the society. And they clearly use this opposition. Gender theory takes away the notion of essential differences between men and women. And this is what we have to fight in the name of feminism. And this is what happened to some extent happened in the controversy between Alice Schwarzer and Judith Butler and me this summer. The true feminism is the feminism that says there are men and women, and feminism has to fight for women. And then there's this false kind of feminism, the gender feminism, that denies that there are men and women.
Yes, it's a very complex
Yeah,
question.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Do we have more questions, or should we take it to the next level?
Just a short one. Just
Sure.
a conclusion. I just want to get back to this morning when there was in the news an interesting argument between two men. One of them argued for investigating into religion and ethnicity the sexual, how do you call it, förövare?
Violator?
Violator, yeah.
Perpetrator?
And a politician answered that he thought this would be absolutely wrong to do this. And after having listened to you tonight, I can guess why he was so afraid. Because he was probably afraid of this being used as a cause or in the wrong way. To put it much more förenklat. But I think personally that one has to investigate into this. At least as a first stage, because otherwise we don't know anything. Yeah, that was. Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, we talked about that before. I mean, for example, one a British college, Nicola Pratt, says she talks of a strategic silence, that we should strategically be silent about women's rights, about these kind of issues, in order to not support racist policies and politics. But that can't be the answer, absolutely no. I mean, but we need to understand how, say it again, religion, culture, patriarchal uprising of men and women, of how that all, works together to produce men who think it's a legitimate means in their repertoire of being in the world to use violence against women and children. That is the politically the question we need to address still. I mean, and academically, that's the issue. One of the issues we need to research very carefully. Yeah. Again, I mean, freedom is like if we do live in the Aufklärung, which the West claims to live in, freedom of the individual, we need to pose these questions. Men do have the freedom to not choose violence. And if they do choose violence, we need to address it. And they need to address it. Why do I think violence is a legitimate means of being in the world?